Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
Honestly, dear reader, the place offended my sensibilities. It's no surprise, really any young man with a college degree in philosophy would likely find the over-the-top, superficial atmosphere of a store like Claire's unbearable. But there I was, in the dreadful mall shop, dragged in by my cousin. Though she's a typical teen, swept up by trends and fads, she was, after all, turning 13 that weekend. I might not be the best cousin, but I was willing to endure a bit of discomfort for her birthday. Not close enough to pick out clothes for her, though we weren't that close. So, there I was, lost in the sea of colorful, pointless trinkets and jewelry. The background music, generic and obnoxious, blared through the store, making my situation worse. When an employee approached with a simple, "Can I help you find something?" I didn't hesitate to reply. I knew exactly what I was doing, but I was surprised by who had come to assist me. I had always assumed that stores like this hired young girls, maybe a bit older for basic math skills, to work the floor. Instead, standing before me was a tall, thin man, with a comb-over that barely concealed his bald spot. His face, drawn with worry, made it seem like he spent his days battling stress. In a moment of clarity, I realized what I was thinking. This man reminded me of a combination between Willy Loman and a turtle. Though I'm not one to express negative thoughts, I couldn't help but notice his appearance. I quickly gave him a brief rundown. My cousin was turning 13, I didn't know her tastes, and I was looking for something affordable that didn't look cheap. His response was swift. "We've got a new jewelry style that's going to be huge for girls like your cousin. It's not out on the floor yet, but if you follow me, I can give you an exclusive preview." I was intrigued. Not only would I have a gift for Kaylee, but I could give her something new before anyone else. I gladly followed Harris, as his name tag said, to the back of the store. But to my dismay, there were no new accessories. Just then, a truck arrived in the employee lot. We redirected toward it, passing a large black van. I should have known better. All black vans are suspicious. The door was wide open. Now, despite my education, I'm no fighter. Before I could react, two large men grabbed me and threw me into the van. I was still in shock when Harris slid into the driver's seat, and the van took off. I tried to struggle, but the two men had already secured me in the middle seat, far from the windows. I couldn't move my arms, so I resorted to shouting insults. "What in the world is going on here? What kind of sales tactic is this, you shameless fools? Let me out," I demanded. This day was only getting worse, though at least my vocabulary was still intact. It seemed my former salesman had a bit of humor after all. Addressing the man sitting next to me, he said, "Did you hear that, Paul? He wants out. Maybe you should help him." Paul, judging by his lab coat, seemed to be a doctor. I figured that out quickly when he pulled out a needle and injected something into my immobile arm. Before long, I was out cold. I have no idea how long I was unconscious, whether it was a week, a day, or just an hour. But in hindsight, I'd say it was at least a week. When I finally came to, I was, well, in total darkness. The room was pitch black, and I was strapped down, my wrists, waist, ankles, and head all secured to the bed. My body ached, my head throbbed, and I still wanted to escape. But that wasn't happening anytime soon. As I lay there, groggy, trying to get my bearings, I began to hear the faintest sound, a voice, almost indistinguishable at first. The voice reminded me of my cousin Kaylee's, bubbly, youthful, high-pitched, and quick. I couldn't catch all of the words, but the rhythm and tone of it seemed unchanging, almost like a lullaby. When I focused, I could make out bits of what it was saying. "I can never have too much lip gloss. Pigtails are so cute. I love shopping. Math is way too hard. Cheerleaders rule. I'm so into boys. Boys don't like smart girls," and so on. I didn't catch every word. It was hard to keep up, but it felt like I had been listening to it for quite some time already. Someone must have realized I was awake, because suddenly, Images started flashing on a screen above me. I couldn't help but look. My head was fixed in place by the restraints, and closing my eyes made my tears almost uncontrollable. The images were strange and, even stranger, the feelings they evoked were unsettling. Half the images seemed to reflect the girl's empty thoughts. Pop stars, makeup products, magazines like Teen and Cosmo Girl, Beanie Babies. These images gave me an oddly pleasant sensation that spread through my right arm. The rest of the images, however, were things I typically enjoyed: symphonies, hockey games, advanced technology, Lucy Liu. But now, they filled me with waves of nausea and discomfort. I never thought seeing Lucy Liu would make me feel sick. Someone was clearly messing with my mind. How many more days like this? I couldn't say. I drifted in and out, likely from the chemicals they were pumping into me. I never felt the need to eat or relieve myself as I lay there. Eventually, I grew used to this routine. So when I awoke in a bright room, surrounded by two strangers and two familiar faces, I was taken aback. I was one of the unfamiliar faces in the room. Blinking in the harsh white light, I noticed that I was still my usual height, about 5 feet 6 inches, but everything about me had changed, and not for the better. My inspection was brief, and I found I was wearing a soft lavender robe that covered most of my body. I did notice that my hair had grown past my shoulders and was now a pale, flaxen color. My nails, both on my hands and feet, were longer, and most noticeably, my body hair had vanished. I also had the uncomfortable feeling that my chest was a bit more pronounced than I remembered. So, understandably, I gasped in surprise and asked, "What's happening to me?" I was quiet for a moment, still stunned that I'd even gasped, and even more so that it came out in a high, airy voice. I was on the verge of passing out, when Harris placed a hand on my shoulder and handed me a glass of water. I drank it gratefully, the liquid soothing my nerves and settling my stomach. Harris then addressed me. "I think you should be grateful, dear," he said with a hint of amusement. "We've made your fantasy come true. We know the type of guy who shops in stores like Claire's, buying trinkets for their cousin or neighbor." He even made air quotes with his hands. "Now you'll be able to go in without anyone giving you a second glance. And you're definitely encouraged to do so. You see," he continued, kneeling beside me, "I represent a group of companies that market to young teens, limited to Abercrombie and Fitch, Claire's, and the like. Instead of spending millions on focus groups to get answers we'll never be satisfied with, we've found a better solution: you. You're going to be our personal focus group, or a focus girl, if you will. Every purchase you make will be tracked, and your preferences surveyed, subtly, of course. It's important that you live the life of a typical customer, and we're doing everything we can to ensure it's as normal as possible." I was furious, but my voice betrayed me, sounding much weaker than I intended. "I'm a focus group. You kidnapped me for your product research? How stupid can you be? You won't get away with this. I'll go to the cops and tell them everything. They'll make sure you pay for this. You can't watch me all the time. One slip up and bam." The rage was there, but it didn't come out as forceful as I'd hoped. Harris looked at me for a moment, then leaned over to whisper to Dr. Paul, who began making notes on a clipboard. I only caught fragments of their conversation. Diction still too, needs to be less aggressive. Finally, Harris turned back to me. "Really, now? It's not that simple. MIA, he paused, waiting for me to register the name. "That's your name now, by the way," he continued. "We have all the proper documentation for you, from birth certificates to your last summer camp. We've made sure your identity checks out. Your dental record and fingerprints have been altered. Your DNA remains the same, but it'll respond differently to typical tests. If you tell the cops you used to be a man, all they'll see is a young girl arguing with her parents." At this, he gestured to Dr. Paul and a quiet woman in the corner, a woman so plain and forgettable that, after 6 months in her presence, I couldn't even recall her face. The realization hit hard, but I was still determined to stay angry. Maybe I'm stuck as a girl, but I'm still me inside. And I'm not buying anything for your research. One pair of shorts, one t-shirt every day, that's it. Dr. Paul cleared his throat before speaking. For someone so awful, he had a surprisingly pleasant voice. Well, no, that's not quite accurate. We've done some remarkable things to your body chemistry, which you'll start to notice soon. The water you drank earlier was a special mixture your body is now dependent on. That nausea you felt when you woke up, that'll hit whenever you fall behind on your intake. We gave it to you in water this time, but from now on, you'll have to absorb it from different sources, through consumption, your skin, and so on. You'll need to stay on schedule. Here's a list of what your body now needs. I stared at the sheets of paper Harris gave me, trying to make sense of the tiny print. I quickly realized that I needed 20 grams of fluoronitrosine per week, combined with a trace amount of red dye number 15. In other words, utterly useless information. Paul watched me struggle with the papers, then handed me another set, this one written in simpler, more horrifying terms. Think of these as a translation of what you just saw, MIA. We've made it easier for you. The list began: required daily, 3 pieces of bubblegum only, 1 ounce of lip gloss, 2 grams of mascara, 2 ounces of perfume, 1 ounce of Noxema. The weekly sheet continued: 1 pound of cotton candy, 3 ounces of tanning lotion, 5 ounces of nail polish, 2 ounces of glitter. I flipped through the papers, learning that I could no longer eat meat. I was now a strict vegan, and that my thighs were sensitive to fabrics, meaning I'd be wearing skirts or dresses most of the time. At this point, I was defeated. Normally, the thought of having to paint my nails every day, eating large amounts of bubblegum and cotton candy, both of which disgusted me, would have driven me to the edge. But instead, I meekly followed Paul and Mamie, Mom and Dad, I suppose, into the next room to get dressed. I hesitated, but one steady look from Paul was enough to make me undress and put on what was laid out on the chair: a baby blue miniskirt, a white peasant top with a lace-up collar, matching platform heels, and a collection of friendship bracelets and beaded necklaces. I grabbed my new megaphone-shaped purse and walked out, cringing at the clacking of my shoes and the jingling of my jewelry echoing down the hall. Sure enough, as soon as I got in the car, I started to feel nauseous and dug through my purse. I found a piece of bubble yum and chewed it, ignoring the sickly taste. I lined my lips with the only lip gloss I could find, Strawberry Angel, and instantly felt better physically. Mentally, though, I was increasingly alarmed. During the long drive, I played with the bracelets on my wrist, staring blankly at the suburban scenery outside. Eventually, we pulled up to a large, well-kept house, clearly the home of a doctor, albeit a corrupt one, and I walked inside, my new home. I was quiet as I entered, but my discomfort grew when Paul announced that he had a gift for me. Thankfully, it wasn't some twisted advance, it was a necklace with my name spelled out in cursive, made of gold. I forced out a delicate thank you while Paul fastened the clasp behind me. Satisfied, he led me to the living room for a chat. The room was tastefully decorated, except for a glaring inflatable chair with the word princess written on it. I sat on the couch. My parents exchanged glances, and much to my surprise, Mom spoke for the first time. MIA, you're probably wondering why I'm here. Paul, as you've likely figured out, will make sure your body behaves the way we want it to. Me, I'm a behavioral scientist. My job is to make sure you behave the way we want you to. The folks at Harris Group offered me too much money to turn this down. They wanted me because I have multiple doctorates and a reputation for knowing what makes teenage girls tick. I'm here to ensure you tick the way we want you to. You'll still have choices, but they'll be limited by your body's needs. As long as you live here, I'll be helping you act and speak like a 13-year-old girl, the one we want you to be, understand? I nodded slowly, surprised by the fierceness behind her words. She continued, now, if you cooperate, your life will be easy. If not. I don't know if she finished the sentence because I jumped up at the sudden, sharp tingling sensation that spread through my body, starting from the necklace. Mamie, Mom, had produced a control and was watching me closely. 10 seconds later, the feeling subsided, but her finger hovered above the control. Can I count on your cooperation? I gasped and nodded, catching my breath as she continued. This necklace will help you understand what's going on here, and it will also let us track your location at all times. If you try to remove it, well, you won't like the consequences. Now, can you think of anything that would prove you're willing to accept your situation? I looked down, then silently padded over and sank into the inflatable chair. My chair. Both Paul and Mamie smiled as she pulled out a sheet. You won't have to go through this alone. I'll help you learn everything you need. Here's your schedule for the classes I'll be teaching to get you where you need to be. And so, I learned how my days would unfold. 7 hours of lessons on gossip, makeup, dance, hair, boys, socializing with, evaluating, flirting with, etc., and countless other topics. Before long, Mamie spoke again. She seemed intent on preventing me from having too much time to think. Of course, you'll be dressed appropriately for these lessons. In the first room on the right upstairs, you'll find a stack of magazines and tins of house paint. I want you to decorate that room as you think a girl like you would. Any remaining defiance in me evaporated as my stomach churned. Surrendering, I spritzed some floral perfume on myself to ease the discomfort before heading upstairs. At least the room was spacious, I thought, as I opened the door. Sure enough, there were several years' worth of Cosmo Girl magazines alongside the brightly colored tins of paint and decorating supplies neatly arranged in the center of the room. The idea of rebelliously painting everything plain white was quickly dismissed as I felt the necklace against my collarbone and noticed the camera in the corner of the room. Opening the top magazine, I began cutting out a poster. MIA. Get down here. That's so typical. I'm almost done with my homework article, and Mom needs me again. How am I supposed to be ready for my celebrity class tomorrow if I can't even finish this? And why are these articles in the magazine so long? She knows I'll have to start over if I don't finish. School is so hard. But when Mom calls, I come. As usual, I check myself in the mirror before going downstairs. Last week, I changed my top without redoing my nails and got in trouble for not matching everything. It was my fault, though. Red top and dark blue nails. Not this time. I looked pretty normal for a Thursday night. A short sandblasted denim skirt with a pink rugby shirt, my pink sequined bracelet from class 2 weeks ago, and my cherry necklace. My nails matched the pink, of course. I touched up my lip gloss and pushed my hair out of my face. The tiara is adorable, but it messes up my hair, so I left it off as I came downstairs. Harris, Mr. Tyler, was there. That meant bad news. After every meeting with Dad and Mr. Tyler, and after drinking whatever they give me, something always changes. I'll look at old diary entries and realize I don't understand the words anymore. So, I wasn't exactly thrilled as I plopped down on my throne. The conversation was mostly the usual, what did I think of this store or that thing? I told him how awful those new headbands at the mall were, and how much I loved my cotton candy perfume. He jotted down a few notes, like always. But I could tell this time was different. MIA, what's the one big difference between you and other girls your age? I knew better than to mention that I used to be a boy, so I went with the obvious answer. Well, I go to school here, and I don't really go out much. I don't even have classmates. Mr. Tyler nodded. And do you want to attend school? I didn't understand the question at first, so I asked why I'd want to go to school in China. Apparently, this was funny, though I didn't get it, so I smiled like Mamie told me to do when I don't understand. No, I mean, do you want to go to school with other girls and, boys? Well, duh, the answer was obviously yes. I told him so, and he seemed thrilled. He told me I'd be starting at East Ashdown Junior High, go Tiger Cats, next week in 8th grade. We all toasted to the occasion. Of course, I got one of those nasty drinks they give me when they want to mess with me. I could have faked it, but I avoid triggering the necklace's tickle feature whenever I can. It's been a week since they did that. Usually, I only find out what the drink made me do later on, sometimes I can't even tell. But Mr. Tyler must have been in a good mood. He looked at me, nodded, then Mamie asked, "What do you think about boys, MIA?" That was weird since, like, a third of my classes were about boys, but I guess Mr. Tyler wanted to hear about it. So I giggled, like I always do, and talked about how awesome boys were and how I was a little obsessed. I told him about my favorite singers, too. "Well, that's great, MIA. We've been talking, and we've agreed that when you start school, it's time to start dating," he said with a big grin. I wasn't exactly thrilled, though. That part of me, the old me, still felt uncomfortable with the idea. I guess my face showed it, because Mr. Tyler's expression turned serious. "MIA, you don't have much of a choice. The drink you had is making 2 changes to you right now. In about a month, you'll develop a new need for certain lotions, makeup, and more. You'll need a special combination of enzymes, available only in one place, the saliva of boys your age." I must have turned red as Mom chimed in, "You must be so excited. I think the best way to show Mr. Tyler your appreciation is to recite that little poem you learned last week, about plums." Mom has always taught me to love performing, so I smiled big and told Mr. Tyler, "A peach is a peach, a plum is a plum, but a kiss ain't a kiss without any tongue, so open your mouth, close your eyes and give your tongue some exercise." Mr. Tyler clapped, which made me feel good, and then he told me more. "And there's another change. Your legs will start to itch and hurt unless you brush them with a special chemical. There's only one place where that cloth exists, the cheerleading uniforms my company is donating to the junior high. So, I hope you've been practicing." Of course, I had to show off a couple cheers Mom had me write. I was excited anyway. I had seen the new uniforms, and they were adorable. Red and gold, with a big growling tiger on the top and EAJS in bold letters. They were made for me. Everyone was happy, and they sent me upstairs while they talked about grown-up stuff. Who cares? I had more important things to think about. What am I going to wear on the first day?